Artie Lange, everybody.
Wow. Thanks, guys. Wow. This is everybody I owe money to.
It is. All here at the same time. Crash and Burn is Artie's new book, and unfortunately, there's nothing really to discuss that's in this book. It's such easy-going life that
it's a lighthearted romp.
It's such on so many levels, and I told you this before that I'm in recovery also.
Yeah, wow, that's great. It's amazing. I hear when I hear that, it really makes me feel good because you don't feel alone. That's the whole point of it.
That is the whole point of it. But normally, when you read anyone's kind of junkie book at all, it makes you crave it a little bit because they romanticize it. Not this book. This book is like, thank God that's not me.
Yeah, this isn't like James Bond doing a line of coke with Elizabeth Hurley in Monte Carlo. This is puking at a Jersey rest stop and trying to take the pills out of the puke and retake them with a hooker that looks like David Ortiz. That's the funniest thing a hooker ever said to me once. She was eating a Big Mac. And she was eating a Big Mac. And she said to me, we got her for this bachelor party. And, you know, it was dope all over the place. The stories that it remind you of when you talk about this shit. But she's eating this Big Mac, and she hadn't, you know, performed for us yet, I'll say. And, and I'm like, why are you eating that Big Mac? She goes, next guy I got to go to wants me to shit on him. I said, do you want some kale?
Quite a busy schedule she had that day, huh?
Tell Jim Norton I said hi. It's a hip crowd.
Yeah, it is. This crowd really knows. Well, when you were putting this book together, had you been thinking a lot about these things before you started to write it?
Well, here's the honest answer, man. The first book I did was Too Fat to Fish.
Right.
It was so successful, and no one expected it to be, you know. Apparently, when you look at me, the word author doesn't scream out. But, you know, because Howard wrote the foreword and promoted it, it went to #1 on the New York Times bestsellers list, so Random House wanted to sign me up immediately. So they gave me $800,000 for a new book. The first payment's $200,000. And I get the check. When I got a check that big, I always take it to my mom. Like, my father had to work 8 years to make $200,000. And we were both shaking, looking at the check. And she'd be like, what do they want you to do for this money? I'm like, nothing. I don't have to, like, go on a hitting spree in South America. So I spent all the $200,000. And then I crash and burn, so to speak. And a year and a half later, I'm getting out of rehab, and my agent calls me, so I'm glad you're doing well. But listen, if you don't write a book, you owe them the $200K. You got to give it back. And I was like, wow, I guess I'm writing a book. So I said, well, they probably want me to write about what just happened, I'm sure, because it was public. And he said, yeah. So I said, I'm willing to do that. It started out hard, but it became like a therapy session. It's sort of a closure.
Right.
I'm glad I wrote about it. And I wanted it to be crazy over the top because maybe someone won't do it. You know?
Yeah. Well, like I said, there's no chance that a kid is going to read this and go, oh, I want to try heroin. This is not going to happen.
Yeah, I hope not.
Yeah.
I hope not.
Although there's plenty of songs that you're like, oh, give me shelter.
Well,
that sounds like fun.
I know. Well, that's the thing. It does, like, so many of, you know, our generation. Yeah. We are the stupidest generation with drugs because in the 60s, no one knew anything. In the 70s, they kind of knew. But by the time I started doing dope in the early, mid-80s, heroes of mine had died from it. Like Belushi, Hendrix, they were all dead, and I still had to do it. It's like, no, I don't believe you. I'm different, you know. And when you think about Keith Richards and the Stones, that fucking music they made is like, why not do heroin? I mean, you know, like, you know, he's writing "Give Me Shelter," and, you know, the people not doing heroin are writing "Bop." And George Carlin, speaking of comics, you know, I love George Carlin, but you talk about the worst thing the greatest comic ever could say was, someone asked him about smoking weed. He said coke is the worst, don't do it, but he said he would always write his act straight, smoke weed, and rewrite it, and it always got funnier. So if George Carlin says that, what comic's not going to smoke weed?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, do you think this is tied in, the addiction's tied into your creativity, or this would have happened. No matter what.
I'd like to think not.
Yeah.
You know, when the material that I sort of made it on was all stuff that was just crazy stories and opinions about stuff that wasn't dope related. But, you know, if you're a comic and you're kind of observational, if heroin comes into your life, it takes over your life, you're naturally going to write about it. It's an experience, you know. It's not like, it's like writing about getting married or something. It's a big part of your life, so you write about it.
The interesting thing, though, is to be a comedian is such a social thing. You've got to interact with the audience. And heroin is the exact opposite
right.
of being social. You don't want to see anyone.
So you're saying what I was doing wasn't logical?
Yes. I was easy.
Thank you, Dr. Freud.
I was thinking this might lead to some problems for you, Artie.
Art, what you're doing is wrong. No, I know. That's the cocaine and ecstasy.
Yeah.
They're social drugs.
Right.
You want to go out and be with people. And everything you say is fascinating. You want to tell them about your idea for a friend's spec script you're working on. Or a new movie idea for Ray Romano. You say stupid shit. And but you're sociable. Heroin is the direct opposite. You want to isolate. And I think about heroin that was great was you remembered your problems. You didn't forget them, but you remembered them. You just didn't give a fuck about them.
Yeah,
you didn't care. I don't give a shit what you say. I'm on heroin. I'm doing fine.
Right.
And it made you like bad entertainment. I remember the first time I ever did heroin. I know I had a problem because I was in a hotel room on the road. I did a couple of lines, and as my head hit the pillow, I said out loud, "I'm in trouble." I said out because this feeling of euphoria came on, and the clicker was just out of reach. And there was a movie on with Luke Wilson and Kate Hudson called Alex and Emma, and I never switched the channel. And by the end, I loved them. By the end, I was going, "How could you say that to Emma? Go back to her right now. Call your mother again and find out some good advice." I liked the movie Alex and Emma, which is the best argument for heroin of all time.
It also takes a really long time to smoke a cigarette.
Oh God, yeah. Well, I got burnt. I had burn holes all over my couch. You know.
Yeah.
All those things. And my mother was kind of naive. Would say like, "What are they doing here?" And I'm like, I don't know. Some cat broke into the house or lit it up.
Your mom, of course, plays a very big part of this book. Your mom and your sister never gave up on you.
Right.
And how do you look back now of knowing what you put the people who love you most?
That's guilt I'll never get over, ever. You know, they found me. I gave my mother a key to my place because she insisted, because she just had to make sure I was okay, and I couldn't argue with her. Stuff had gotten so bad. And the morning I stabbed myself, they had planned an intervention. And they were there with Colin Quinn and a couple of friends of mine and some uncles and aunts. And it wasn't going to be an intervention where I had a choice. They were dragging me away. But they just happened to come the morning where I just did that. And, I thought to myself, what if I stabbed myself 9 times in the stomach? And I said, what if I don't die? And like you said, so you just don't care about anything. I don't know what my plan was if I didn't die. Get up and put on a red shirt and hope no one notices. What am I going to do? But people say, why don't you just jump off a building and make sure it happens or blow your head off? And I could have made a couple of phone calls and probably got a gun. But the jumping off it shows how my mind thinks. If I went to the Four Seasons and got on the 80th floor and jumped out on 5th Avenue, I said, I really thought this way. I said, what if I fall on somebody? That poor motherfucker. I said, and I pictured in my head a woman crying on the Oprah Winfrey Show, and underneath it, there's a caption that says, Artie Lange fell on her son. Or her 2 sons.
Right.
And then I live.
Yeah, right.
They're dead. I just have a sprained ankle.
They wheel you out, then you're going to take the shit.
Right.
In front of her audience.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And then every asshole talk show host thinks I'm a jerk,
Well, one thing that you do out in this book is what a wonderful guy that Colin Quinn is. I mean, the fact
the best,
that he was there for you time and time again, because it's something, like, for me, it's easier to, like, think from the way of an addict than it is from someone who helps addicts.
Right.
And keeps going back. That's way more frustrating to me, to be on the other side of that.
Oh, God, yeah.
And the the fact that he just keeps showing up in your book. And one of the things I'm reading, I'm like, does Artie get this? That he's got one of the funniest people in the history of the planet showing up over and over.
Well,
and over.
it helped because you can't bullshit him.
Yeah.
And you can't one-up them.
Right.
You know, my mom, God bless her, when I first started doing drugs, she was such a nice person, so naive to drugs. You know, she could walk in on me doing a line of coke, and I'd go, look, it's Disney World. You know, and she would look, and I'd do a line of coke. But with Colin, you know, he's gonna, and every analysis he's gonna have is gonna be funny and witty and make sense, and he's smarter than you are, you know. So he's a guy that I didn't want to disappoint after a while, you know.
After disappointing him 18 times, 19 times,
18 million
you know?
times, absolutely.
Yeah. That's the thing about it is when you're reading this book, you think to yourself, well, Artie had to have bottomed out. And then you look down, you're like, well, this is the 20th page. So obviously this is going to keep going on.
Yeah.
Because these really rough things would happen. You would go get clean. And what then makes that do either that first drink or that first blast?
You know, I wish I didn't sound like such a pussy when I said this, but for me it was anything. It was traffic. It was stress at work, just not being a strong person, you know. I'm lucky that, you know, I'm in a business where I could behave like I behave and get rewarded for it. There's no, I mean, if I was working for AT&T, I'd be homeless right now. You know, they were not going to put up with this. I mean, look at me. I you know, I look homeless and I make $2 million a year, like, you know, acting like an idiot. And I'm lucky that happened. But people could say it's a business that enables you. I had no reason to stop. There were no consequences. You know, Chris Rock came on the Stern Show once, and Howard asked him some advice live on the air. And Rock was always great on the show because he got it, and he was smart and everything and funny. And he was like, "Well, Howard, I think you're gonna have to fire him." He's like, "Really? Yeah, I think you're gonna have to fire him because right now he's got no consequences. If he's fired, you know, be living under a bridge in 2 months. Maybe I won't do heroin." And that makes a lot of sense, you know. But Howard could never find it in his heart to fire me, you know. And I think he knew me well. Because if he had fired me, then maybe I would have jumped off the 80th floor. I would have been able to deal with that.
Well, you know, one of the toughest things for me to read is when you admitted that you started losing your timing on that show. For some reason, that hit me harder than, you know, a million of the other things that would be bad to regular people. Because to lose that timing, that is you. That is what you have.
Right. And it's funny, fans of that show, they all claim ownership of you. Like, I would be on the air and, you know, because I was doped up, I'd be interrupting Howard. And, like, I'd be, after the show, I'd be walking down 6th Avenue, construction guys would go, with like a saw on them, go, listen, you're fucking up. What happened? We wanted to hear that story about Ben Stiller, and you're yapping, you're falling asleep. They're giving me career advice, you know?
Yeah.
And it was just, you know, everybody knew it but me type of thing. And then I would listen back to the shows because on Sirius you could do that. You go, wow, I am cutting them off. And for 7 straight years we had this amazing timing.
Right.
But then, you know, with heroin, you don't have the timing anymore. And it was brutal to listen to.
Yeah, that is, you know, and that's always what happens, I think, that we can put up with artists who do that until they start to lose that thing.
Like now it's enough. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You're being too self-indulgent.
Yeah, you fucked with the art.
Right.
You know
you're too obnoxious. You're too, you know, like you gotta try at least, you know. And I get it. You know, people want you to hear that you're at least trying to be funny or good or quiet. And when you do drugs and come in high, you're just shitting all over that. And it sucks.
But do you feel like you had to push it that far till finally, you know, you screwed it up? Is there a part of you that goes for that? Or?
No, the show was real reactionary. Like, I sort of prided myself in the fact that I could roll with any punch we had there, any conversation, and I would adjust how far I'd push it to that. I didn't feel I needed anything. No. If you were talking to Crazy Alice, it was different than if you were talking to, you know, Arnold Schwarzenegger. You treat it differently.
Right.
But when I had the opportunity with Crazy Alice or somebody, or Beetlejuice or somebody to really go nuts, that's when you go nuts. The show was just fun. It was just like 3rd grade fun, throwing spitballs. It was great, you know. My favorite, people say, what was your favorite moment? We had a contest, the world's biggest hemorrhoid. And Howard said we're going to have the world's biggest hemorrhoid. And when he says it, a million guys with hemorrhoids show up, you know. Yeah. And we had a doctor there checking them, and they would come in and make sure they weren't faking it. And they would lean over, and the guy would say, yeah, it's really a hemorrhoid, and send them through. So we had it down to the final 10, and they would come in, and me, Robin, and Fred, we all judged it. And these guys would drop their pants and spread their cheeks and bend over. And I'm telling you, Ron, the guy that won had alien between his feet. It looked like my face red. And he affected, he couldn't go anywhere. He was bleeding. He had diapers and stuff. And when he revealed the hemorrhoid, Howard and I both went, oh, it was just like a gut reaction. And he looked at me and made eye contact with me, and I said, Howard, what are we doing? And he goes, I don't know. And that's what was great about the show. Like, someone had an idea, yes. And Howard's like, well, we'll do the idea. If it sucks, I'll just say it sucks on the air. I'll make it funny that way. If it doesn't, we got the world's biggest hemorrhoid.
You see what drugs can cost you, kids, if you if you don't take care of the precious thing. It's so great.
Yeah, I know. I wish I wasn't high for that day. Yeah. I would remember it.
But that's the thing that got to me. You loved doing that show. And for a comic, this really was the restaurant with a great location.
Oh,
you know
God,
what I mean?
Yeah, it's everything. I mean, people say how to change my stand-up sales. I literally went from playing clubs called Yuck Yucks to Carnegie Hall. I mean, that's the truth. That's what happened. And selling it out in a couple hours. Because you plugged it on Howard. It was, and I had these dumbass fucking agents at the time when I took the Stern show. I'd come off a sitcom on ABC for 2 years, and I hated it. And I was just laugh tracks and then I got offered the job on Howard after being there for a few months, and it was half the money the sitcom was paying me. But I knew I could triple it on the road. It was fine with it. You know, I wanted to do the road. I was okay, and I knew it would lead to other shit. I had an agent out there who actually said to me, "Well, you were on TV show and network television. You're not going to go to radio." I wanted to crawl through the fucking phone, like radio. I'm not blowing the 5 o'clock whistle on Z100 in St. Louis. You know what I mean? I'm not on the Eddie and Yak Yak show and, doing a 2 for 2. Here's the Ramones. I'm doing my generation's Johnny Carson. Literally. I mean, that's what I'm doing. And, you know, I wasn't allowed on the Tonight Show because of craziness that happened between Howard and Jay Leno for a while. And my agent said, that sucks. You got to sacrifice that. And I was doing Letterman. I didn't care. And I said, yeah, you know, it sucks I can't be like one of the Tonight Show guys who opened for me on the road.
Right, yeah.
You know, Howard, you know, puts asses in seats, man. You know, it's just amazing.
So to have that, though, that kind of kept you from bottoming out, maybe even... You know, when you should have bottomed out.
Yeah. It helped me keep up appearances, they go, right. You know, right? Because when you're on heroin, if you run out of it, that's when you start to fuck up in life. But if you have a constant flow of it and you have the money to get it, which unfortunately I had, you know, you can last way longer, you know. It's the withdrawals that get you. That's when you start no-showing because you're too sick to come in or you get irritable. And like, that's what started to happen to me at the end because my tolerance was so high. I'm like, you know. Well, it used to be a couple of lines, and I took a bag, then I took 2 bags, and then eventually it took Afghanistan to get me fucking...
Sure, right.
You know, just to feel normal.
Yeah. And the thing with you have this reputation as being one of the sweetest guys in the world, and you can't be sweet and a heroin addict at the same time.
We eventually have to be very selfish.
Yeah.
But I would do things... I would give people money and people would mistake it for kindness when it was really hatred. I'm like, I would give people money to stop talking to me because I want to go get high. You know what I mean? Like, hey, Artie, listen, I don't know if I feel awkward bringing this up, but I need $100. My buddy's got, here's $1,000. Never talk to me again.
Right.
Wow, what a nice guy. You know, I'm going, oh, fuck, I'd never want to see you. I'd rather not have $1,000 than see you ever again.
And then they start to hide from you.
Right, exactly. It cost me it's like in the Bronx Tale. It cost me $1,000 to get him out of my life. I probably could have got it cheaper, but I wasn't a negotiator at that point. And eventually, I almost got to the point, if I kept going, I would have got to the point where if someone said, hi, Artie, you look great. How much to never talk to you again? I'm just saying you look good. How much to never see your face again?
Yeah.
I never got that big.
Because that's where you want it to be. You want it to be alone.
Yeah, you isolate yourself on heroin. I remember the first time I tried ecstasy, I said, oh my God, they perfected pills. I wanted to meet the guy who invented it, like the guy who invented air conditioning or pizza. Like, I want to meet that guy, you know? And I was like, it's all in a pill. Coke, heroin, everything in a pill. And you're all lovey-dovey. Yeah. I walked, someone gave it to me, actually a famous comic, a chick gave it to me. I won't say her name.
Well, there's only so many.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe I gave it away. Her name rhymes with Schmalane Oozler. No, it's not her. But anyway, a comic gave me ecstasy, but I was doing blow, and I was like, that's a chick drug or something. I took it. And I walked up and down Avenue B, down on the Lower East Side, like shaking bums' hands, like, hey, what's up, buddy? Give me a fucking hug. And then homeless people were scared of me, you know.
Yeah.
And then you wonder how homeless people can put their head back on concrete and get a good night's sleep, and I can't on an expensive bed. And you realize they're on heroin.
Right.
Look at opium dens. The reason they made a lot of money was they didn't have a lot of overhead on nice mattresses. It was wood.
It's true.
Because they know on opium you don't bitch about anything.
No.
Wood is fine. I'll sleep in a shark tank with a cinder block on me. Just give me the fucking heroin.
It's true. No one minds that pissy smell. No one's complaining.
All of a sudden, you don't smell like shit. You know? Or the woman you're with doesn't smell like shit. And the women you're with, that is where, oof, I'm sure I'm an example of the men they were with, but yeah, you lower your standards in every arena. You know, for some of you baseball fans out there, at the Holland Tunnel Diner in 1997, I had sex in a 1978 Monte Carlo with a chick who looked exactly like Miguel Cabrera. Triple Crown winner for the Tiger. I swear to God, thinking back, she looked like Miguel Cabrera. So that's disturbing.
Yeah.
You know. But hey, you live and you learn. I'd rather have, what's that old saying? I'd rather have said I did it and failed and I never tried it. You know.
Yeah.
But,
well, are you done though? Are you at a point
I
right
wish
now?
I could answer that, man.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be some pompous ass. Like the first time I tried to get sober, I was 28, and I remember I had 2 weeks in, and I'm like, this is great. How easy. You pussies are bitching about getting sober. This is simple.
Yeah.
And 2 weeks later, I was in jail for possession of coke. I'm not pompous enough to say it's stronger than me.
Right.
I could flip out from here. I don't know. Really, I worked there for 8 years. I was looking around the bathroom for old stash places.
Cousin Bruce, you already got to that. So.
That's not your hairpiece. That's heroin.
I noticed, though, with you, we're coming into a kind of a bad time of the year for you, but it's the Christmas time of the year. You seem to slide a little bit around then.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, because so many people are out being festive,
Yeah.
I can't be festive anymore. It really is aggravating that I have to live like a child. I was such a fuck up. I can't do anything. I can barely just breathe, and, people don't want, because they're afraid it's going to lead to something. And yeah, everybody drinks at the holidays. And, it sucks. It sucks. And again, in the past, I've isolated myself. I just won't go.
Right.
I won't go.
But do you have things to do this year as it gets closer to Christmas?
Not really.
You need some things to do.
My fiance's birthday is January 1st.
Yeah.
So, that's a lot of planning. God forbid you don't come up with that.
Right.
With the good enough thing.
But that's what I would do this time of year, I think, for you. Because in the book, even when things were okay,
right,
you would disappear at Christmas and forget to go to your mom's. It's like 5-6 years running.
I went to Miami a couple of times.
Yeah.
And,
that's not a good place.
Talk about ballsy. I would go I went to rehab. Howard gave me off to go to rehab. I stayed 7 days out of 28, escaped. Me and 2 other guys. We got a room at the Satai in South Beach, spent like $40,000 that weekend. And I remember I was all coked up. I ordered room service that I wasn't eating because I was fucking, all messed up. And I put the room service guy, who was Filipino, on the phone with Howard on the air live. That's how much I didn't care about this great situation I had. And Howard, what is he eating? I go, the pancake, yeah, a lot of pancake. But yeah, I made every mistake you could make.
Yeah.
Getting rich and sort of famous, and I made every mistake you could make, and I knew what they were, but I just I wanted to go into the fire and see what happened.
And now, do you think I've been through the fire? I've got that down. You know what I mean?
Nah, it's the thing, whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily true.
No.
I'm much weaker, I think. But no, there's stuff I wish had never happened.
Yeah.
But it's like my advice to a kid would be, well, first of all, don't ask me advice, but it would be, if you think you could try everything without getting in trouble, try it. But that's an impossible thing.
Right.
It's an impossible thing to tell somebody that.
Did you ever, just have a few drinks in your life? Was there ever a time in your life where you felt like you maintained you could have a couple beers and then?
Yeah, I remember at my communion I had 4 gin and tonics.
Yeah. So that was
that is it.
Yeah, that's a good boy.
You're showing some willpower. That I am done.
That's a good boy.
No, everything got amplified. Yeah. Everything had to be taken to the next level of shit. Like, it's almost like you look around and go, how can I make this shittier? Or God forbid it's too good. I want to make this shit. I've had contempt for women I've dated because they were young and pretty and not the brightest bulb and whatever, and they got these great life, and like I've almost said out loud, just staring guys, I've almost said out loud to them at a dinner, like, how can I make you like really sad right now, and I figure out a way to do it, by taking my shirt off.
Have you figured out why though? Why you want to make things shittier?
I don't know. I've talked to other comics too. Yeah, I think I have a contempt for people. Ultimately, it's like and that comes from a contempt for me. I know how I am, and I know the shitty thoughts I have, and I'm like, well, sometimes I'm walking down Fifth Avenue or whatever in Manhattan, and 2 23-year-old kids are smiling, and they got a big dog that they probably have in a studio apartment that's shitting all over the place, and they're laughing, and I feel like going up to them and make a documentary would be called "What the Fuck Are You So Happy About?" I'm like, why are you practically skipping?
Yeah. You're
frolicking. What are you so happy about? And they probably go, what's your problem? Just they were alive, I don't understand that. It's just, I guess, just dark thinking.
But the crazy part of that too is you've spent your life making people happy.
Right.
You take sad situations, even just sitting here, you've gotten laughs with some pretty dark things to loosen them up. But at the center of it, it's not that funny to you.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. That's the escape, I think. Well, that's why one of my heroes is Richard Pryor. Because he had the ability to take tragic situations and make them funny. If you think about it, he lit himself on fire and he did a whole hour on it. I mean, that's ballsy and incredible. And that's how you stay alive. That one special he does where he's talking about shooting his wife's car and he bought her the car.
Right.
And that vodka I was drinking said, "Shoot something else, just shot the car." And it's so honest. That's what I want it to be. But sometimes you take it too far, maybe.
What is the thing about honesty for you? Why is honesty so important?
It's the basis of all comedy, is honesty. A joke is really, really great when it's kind of biting and you go, "Whoa, that's true,"
Yeah.
Tension, when you create tension. That's why I love doing racial shit on my shows, because it's like, it just creates tension. And then you have the other thing, if you're a comic for long enough, Nick DiPaolo's the best at this, and Attell is great at this too. We would try to do these exercises down at the Comedy Cellar where we would go on stage and say something that we knew would make the crowd hate us and dig a 10-foot hole. And then the goal was in a 15-minute set to get completely back to where they love you.
Yeah.
And sometimes that didn't work. They just hated you the whole time.
Yeah.
But you would try to think of a line. Okay, how am I going to make these people hate my guts? And whether it's offensive or not, because the truth, you guys know who Patrice O'Neill is?
Sure, of course.
Yeah, amazing. He was one of the funniest guys ever. And one of the smartest guys, like if you were insulting him, while you were insulting him, he would like look you over and he was just soaking it all in. And then he would go, "You done?" And then it would be like a barrage of bullets, like boom, that you couldn't handle. But him and Nick DiPaolo should have had their own fucking sitcom. They loved each other, respected each other's comedy, but they couldn't have been more different politically and everything. So Patrice went to get a physical. And, you know, in hindsight, this is kind of a sad story, but he went to get a physical, and he came to the Comedy Cellar afterwards. We were all sitting at this big table they have where all the comics wait to go on. It was a long time ago. It was me and Nick. It was Louis C.K., Dave Chappelle, Dave Attell, and Patrice. It was like an all-star lineup there. So everyone knew Patrice was going to get a physical. And this is a perfect example of, like, around other comics, the more honest, the better. And some people might find it offensive. Patrice sits down, and Nick goes, "How was your physical?" Now, anybody else saying that, it sounds nice. How was your physical? But no, how was your physical? And that Boston, that like mean, tense. And Patrice goes, "Man, I got 7 out of 10 things that kill niggas." Without missing a beat, Nick goes, "One of them a handgun?" It's honest shit. You know, you know, and he would you know, comics love pointing out when other comics bomb too. And Patrice had this great thing sort of get back at Nick on Tough Crowd with Colin Quinn. When you bomb with a joke, especially on a talk show, you don't know what to do with your hands. Like even the most experienced comic, like you say something that bombs, like, oh, you know. So on Tough Crowd with Colin Quinn, Colin always had a mug of water. So Nick said a line that didn't get anything. So Nick was like, "What do I do?" So he took a sip. Patrice goes, "Yeah, take another sip of Timon, stupid." And, you know, with other comics, it gets to the point where you have to be mean to get laughs. There's no other way to do it, you know, because you're immune to the other shit. You need stronger heroin, you know.
Is this the people that you feel most comfortable with in your life, though? The comics, the guys that you came up with, and the guys that you respect?
I think the guys who have the blues the most. Like, I went to Afghanistan with a group of guys for 10 days and I took the darkest guys I could find. I took Dave Attell, I took DiPaolo, and I took Jimmy Florentine. And again, they gave us rules. The worst thing is we like breaking rules, you know. The guy said to us, we were about to perform in Kandahar indoors for the troops, and the Marine who was in charge of us said 2 things taboo. Don't talk about the president. He's commander-in-chief. I'm like, okay. The other thing, you can't talk about masturbating. For some reason, they don't want them to hear about masturbating, which was crazy. So Attell goes up, and this is how Attell handles it. The first thing out of Attell's mouth, he goes, "You know, they say we can't talk about masturbating, and I'm going to obey that rule. But what I'd like to do is tell you a story about a time I was fucking a sock with shampoo in it." And the place went fucking nuts. One time, Nick and I were on stage with how politically correct colleges could get. We were on stage with a deaf interpreter. She was a young girl, and everything we said, she had to do. So I got on stage and I said, "Are there any deaf people here?" And they said, "No." And I said, "Well, you could pretty much take off tonight." But it was her job. She had to do it, you know. And it's disconcerting. You do your act, and you're like, you know. I was thought it'd be funny if she's behind a little bit, like people laugh and you hear one deaf guy going, "Oh!" Or if you don't hear the deaf guy, you're like, "Did he hate it?"
Yeah, what happened?
Ask him if he hated it. Then you get a whole fucking thing. And then, before you know it, it's an hour. But this is how low down and just immature I am.
Yeah.
I said, "All right, you know, you're not going to leave." I said, "What's the, how do you say pussy?" And this is literally the sign language for pussy. This is it. So I had another half hour left. After every joke I told, I just said pussy for no reason. So she, for the last half hour, she goes. Then she goes. The last minute I said pussy 80 times in a row. Pussy, 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 like my Rosalita. She didn't go like this.
But for the people listening on the radio, he's framing his vagina.
Yeah, right.
Now.
Well, I don't have a vagina. Not yet.
It's interesting that you're attracted to those same guys that you want to hang out with. And at the same time, I was thinking about when you were saying that you guys would love to dig a hole and climb out of it. You were also doing that with your life the whole time.
Right. In a way, that was a metaphor, if you will, for my life. Yeah, absolutely. I have to push the destruct button on, and then I don't know what it goes back to. I mean, you need a shrink, I guess, but I've tried shrinks. They don't know. I've had shrinks who literally go, I can't help you. You know, the medication and stuff. They put me on lithium once. And if you misdiagnose something, I mean, lithium, I walked around like Ozzy Osbourne the whole time. Like he don't, now you don't know why he walks around with his hands like this, because that's what lithium makes you do. I walked around like this, like a zombie. And it's like you're always burning. Like, Mr. Crowley, lend me on it. Yeah, so I don't know. It's just I think the darker parts are funnier. I'd rather be cynical. Like, there's two groups of people. There's people who ski, there's people who make fun of people who ski. I've always been in the latter.
Right. But suppose that, it's a genie comes along. I can make you happy. I can make you feel good. I can make you feel normal, but you'll lose that sense of humor. Would you make that?
I'd take it in a heartbeat. To be happy?
Yeah.
I wouldn't. I know a lot of unfunny, happy motherfuckers, and I am jealous of them.
Right.
I'm jealous of them. I don't know what I do for a living,
right,
but I'm happy. So maybe, I inherit money or something. Whatever scenario you want.
Yeah.
Like Paris Hilton. I hate it, but she seems happy.
Yeah, there's plenty of people out there that are happy.
I want my kids to be these things. Dumb, good-looking, and rich. That's all it is. It ain't hard. That's happiness.
Yeah.
You're too stupid to know there's anything bad in the world. Rich makes you deal with everything, and good-looking is everybody just caters to you. You're good-looking. But God, I fucking would love that.
Yeah, but
I already hate my kids, by the way.
Yeah, all right. You can't relate to them at all.
I already hate them for having more money than me.
But money didn't bring you a lot of happiness. I mean, there were times that you
I
rented
it a couple of nights.
Yeah, you would get rid of it quick.
Yeah.
Because there's a weird thing with you with money, and going through your book, you're kind of conservative with it, and then at the same time,
yeah, no, I'm a bad spender. I'm the Jackie Gleason. I'm the jerk off who likes to go, that's where we going now, Norton. Come on, When I was on Mad TV, I went from making $10,000 a year to $10,000 a week, and I would. I had no etiquette show business wise. I was like 26, and the accounting department would send my check to William Morris, and they would take out the money, the percentage that I owed them, the commission, and I said, that's bullshit. I would go right to the accounting guy and make him give me my check. I said, it's my money. I would cash it. I would wire my money for my mother. I'd wire my mother $4,000 every week. I'd give the commission to William Morris in cash, and I'd put $4,000 in my pocket and walk around L.A. like I was Jack fucking Nicholson. And for a little while you are with 4 Gs.
Right.
I just had fun, and I spent it,
But you always took that money back for your mom, too.
I always made sure I sent her money. Yeah.
And that comes from a promise that you made.
Right, yeah. My father laid that boulder of guilt on me right before he died. Like, take care of your mother and sister. I'm like, really, is that all you got for me right now?
Yeah.
You're about to check out, and you're not even leaving me a piece of sheetrock. That's what you have?
Yeah.
That's what you came to terms with, that you're going to fucking... all these guys. I got to take care of Mom. Anything else you want? You want me to fix the sink, too? I mean, and he was sorry. He was crying, but, that's all he is. I can't do it. I'm paralyzed from the neck down, and we're on welfare. I can't do it. I blew it. Don't blow it. So ever since then, I've been taking care of my mother. As a man, you think it's financial, but, when she really just wants you to be there.
Right.
On some level, emotionally or something.
Do you think that's what your dad meant? Be there for your mom, not so much send money, but be that person that's
He
there. He
probably meant protection against people, because he was a street guy, and money.
Yeah.
I think he meant money more than anything. Because he was a fighter, my father. He just I saw him getting fights my whole life, too. That's another disconcerting thing. I can just fight a guy at the drop of a hat, because he threw a snowball at his car or some shit. He was very Nork, my father.
Yeah, right.
Very, very Nork. But the most street smart guy I remember. But, he always told me there's always somebody tougher. There's always someone tougher than you out there, And the thing that was tougher than him was the roof he was on that day, and he fell. It beat him.
And that also stays with you. I mean, that's throughout your book, you don't get too many pages away from bringing your
yeah, it's a through line. You know, I think you have fathers and sons, you know. And every rich, poor, whatever. You got Bush getting Saddam Hussein to satisfy his father on some level, probably. You know, it's just the reason wars are fought. You want to impress your old man. Like, that's what I always felt. You know, and I'm still doing it. He would love this career I'm in. He's the one who told me about Howard Stern. Summer of 1982, he comes home from working in the van. He goes, "You're working with me tomorrow. You got to hear this guy." And we listened to Howard the whole day. And I was hooked on it, and, you know, eventually I got on the fucking show long after he was gone. But if he ever lived to see that, he would be ecstatic, you know. But that day, I know everything sounds like I grew up in the 1940s, but I used to hustle pool. Me and my buddies used to hustle 9-ball at the local county colleges in the game room. And that's what I did instead of going to work with him that day. And my job was to hold the ladder. And I told him I got to school or something. I wasn't in school. He just accepted that. Yeah, I went to play 9-ball all day, and he fell off a ladder that he had to put on a picnic table that wasn't held properly. And forget about it. You know, I have nightmares about that. And he never brought it up to me, but I think about it all the time. That
stays with you every day. Every day.
Pretty much. I think about it every day.
Yeah.
Every time I see a ladder or something. And it's a long. I come from a long bloodline of losers. It's like usually when you have an injury like that, you can sue somebody, and a jury will award you money just because they feel sorry for you. But the lawyers heard about this in the paper and said, "Oh God, you know, they all came ambulance chasers, and we're going to sue the ladder company." I've had these lawsuits before. We'll sue the ladder company. And my father stole the ladder that he had. And we were like, both like, "Mama, really? Is that fucking true?" Even the lawyer was like, "You're kidding me." He loved the scam, my old man. He loved getting over. He was a crook. He was a thief. He was a small-time thief, and he loved it. He got high off stealing. And he was teaching me how to steal. He taught me and my buddy how to get illegal cable for the whole block, run up the pole and take the filter, boil it for half an hour, put the filter back up. The inspectors came, they saw the filter, but really when you boil it, it lets all the signals through. The whole block got showtime, and we would just go collect $100 like every month. And if a guy pissed us off, go, "Fuck you, I'm taking his showtime away." Yeah, he taught me and my buddy Danny how to climb the fucking telephone pole.
So that was, do you think, really early on, though, that kind of guilt thing, that once you felt that, it got tough to accept any success, Mad TV, the Howard Stern Show, the movie?
Yeah, no, I felt like I didn't deserve it a little bit, yeah. Like, if he was this tough guy that didn't make it, and it's funny. You know, the age 33 was really tough for me because Jesus died when he was 33.
It's a rough year.
And you go, like, yeah, you're right. You go like
Jesus and Belushi.
Think of all he did, right? Jesus and Belushi and Farley. You go, I think everything Jesus accomplished by the time he was 33. You know, I'm nowhere near that. Dying for our sins, holy crap. Yeah, you don't feel like you're ever worthy of it. And then you start meeting people in show business who are real successful, and you roll with them, and then you see their lives, and you're like, wow, that gets crazy. Like, you become envious, you know.
Are you still envious? Because the fact of the matter is, already most people, 99% of people who ever went in show business never had it as good as your success.
No, I know. It's funny. No, listen, with this economy, if people heard the money I'm making and I bitch over it, they'd hit me with a bat. But like an idiot, I tend to find the 1% who are way richer.
Right. Yeah, and you can always do that. I mean, fucking Tom Cruise can do that.
Right.
You know what I mean? No matter who you are.
There's someone else
there.
Yeah,
you can find someone else. So you do go looking for that
like,
type thing.
I lived in L.A. The last year I was doing a sitcom, I lived in a high-rise by UCLA, and there was a prince who was going to USC. He was 22 years old, like an Arab prince in the top floor of the penthouse of this place I was living. And he always had parties with gorgeous girls that looked like young Heather Locklears. And sometimes he'd see me in the elevator. He'd be walking his $8,000 dog. And he'd go, "Where are you going?" And I go, "I'm going to work." And he would laugh. He'd go, "Ha, what's that like?" You don't want to punch the kid. And he goes, "Come up and join the party." And then I went to one of the parties, and I was like, "Oh, here's a friend." This guy's a friend. But, you know, again, no concept of money. That's the wealth you see sometimes. You get so depressed at that, and people throw away money. The concept of money means nothing to them, you know?
And you feel like people in third world countries would look at you and go, "Oh, look how Artie took care of the money and success."
Right.
I mean, seriously, most of the world can't get.
No, I mean, if I was in a third world country and I saw me, and I was starving to death, I'd be, you fat fuck. Look at you, you fat fuck. That was my Middle Eastern guy.
Well, yeah, it's a great impression. I'm
Same as my French guy.
glad you helped me. But I think, is there part of you who thinks you didn't even work for the success that you got?
Oh, no, I know I worked.
You worked for it, right?
No, I got, no, absolutely.
Because I know you've got great timing and you have a great sense of humor, but you've also earned the things that you've
no, I paid my dues of working the shit shack on Sunday nights in front of 2 people and all. Yeah, some people do get lucky with shows. That's why LA is the one city where idiots could become billionaires, like true idiots. That can't happen in any other city. There's a lot of smart people who do it, but a true idiot become a billionaire in LA just by getting lucky or something. If someone's a billionaire in Kansas City, they're probably got some sort of intelligence. But in LA, you could be a moron. And that's why it attracts a lot of morons, and that's very alluring. No work, and you get a lot of money, but I worked my ass off.
But I also think there's something that you've achieved beyond money, and I brought this up. There's something about you, despite all the things that you've said or about not liking people or done. When you got in trouble, so many really terrific people cared about you. And the thing that Bruce Springsteen calls you out of nowhere, that can't be just for, oh, he's a funny guy. There's got to be something on the other side of that makes people pull for you, dude.
I guess. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of people who didn't call. Right. I think I'm likable because I don't give people a real reason to be jealous of me. I think that's the key. The key to being likable is mediocrity. People don't look at me and go, "Oh God, I wish I was him." And I think that makes people like me better.
I get that you play that down, but I'm going to tell you it's more than that. Yeah. And I think the people here think that it's more than that too. There's something about you, dude, that everybody's pulling for you, and everybody wants you to do well.
Well, I'm one of the few people who does sit-ups properly, which is my third book. Listen, all I know is I've been lucky, too. Yeah. I've been very lucky to have people in my life who saved my life, who were heroes of mine. Howard's one, and certainly Robin to a certain extent, and, Springsteen calling me. Scott the Engineer's right there.
Scott the Engineer's.
There's a guy that, you go, Jesus Christ.
But you have had that, and you're continuing. You're keeping together with surrounded by people that are going to be there for you. Particularly, I'm saying again, through this.
Oh, you have to be. Yeah. If you have to be. If you want to stay sober, you can't hang around. Dee Dee Ramone. Right? It's just not possible. You gotta be around people and that's the thing, you start to go, those people aren't fun, but they are. There's a lot of interesting people, especially in New York. My God, if you can't find somebody interesting at an AA meeting in New York, I tell you the stories you hear, you can't find somebody interesting. And in group therapy, in this group therapy I went to in Florida, this woman she's an enormous woman named Dottie, and she had this huge cup of coffee, and she would rest it on her stomach like that. And she would make you do the counseling. Like, she would make other people in the group give feedback to people. And you're not qualified for that. But that's what group therapy is. I'm like, why don't you fucking say something? You got the license and stuff. So one time, I swear to God, one time, there's a new guy in the group. His name was Luis. New guy in the group. And she goes, guys, new friend to the group, Luis. Luis, tell your name and tell us why you're here. And my hand to God, Luis gets up and goes, my name is Luis, whatever. I kidnapped my friend's baby and sold it for angel dust. And then he sat down. Then there was a 30-second pause, and the counselor went, Artie, feedback. And I said, what? Kidnapped the baby, and shouldn't you take this one? Like I was in parallel parking, a little buzzed. So I got up, and I said, listen, Louise, try not to do that again. And then, you know, you say something to a kid, say something to him, and his reaction was, yo, can we text? You're not getting it, Louise.
Yeah.
The group therapy, talk about material. Like my stand-up act, my hour, I'm going to shoot as a special I've been touring with the last 2 years is from the group therapy. And
yeah.
I play, you haven't lived till you played Scrabble in a mental institution. I played Scrabble in this mental institution. 3 people in the game. It was me. It was an 80-pound woman from crystal meth. She weighed 80 pounds. And a guy weighed about 400 pounds. He was on methadone and Thorazine. He had not gotten his medication yet. That was the Scrabble game. So I was keeping score. So by the time the big guy, the 400-pound guy, he went last. When it was his turn, there was an open G on the board. It just said G. So he very calmly puts an M and an R next to G. It said GMR. So I was scared of the guy. I went, great word. Let's add that up. The G's a 3, M, triple letter, whatever. The crystal meth girl goes, that's not a word. And I'm kicking her on the table. It's a fucking word. She goes, it's not a word. And I felt like screaming at her. I'm like, really? Really? Now is the time in life you make a stand? Now you have integrity. Should have been 30 years ago at the prom when your loser boyfriend offered you blow. Because this might fucking... No, then you took the blow. Look around. We are in a psych ward playing Scrabble. It's over. In the world we've created, GMR is a fucking word. Because you just try to kill time.
But were there days where you're like, what the hell am I doing here?
Oh, God, yeah. When you're in a mental institution... First of all, I've been in jail and a mental institution. I'd much rather be in jail because those people think logically. They needed money, so they stole a car.
True.
In a mental institution, they talk to their feces. You can't rationalize with them.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are crackheads. You know, they went nuts from smoking crack, and these counselors, they'll be tweaking out these crackheads going nuts, and they'll give them a game of Scrabble. And it's like, you know, if you're like going, listen, he's not a Scrabble head. He wants to smoke crack. But you walk around thinking, is someone going to come get me? You got that, you know, your ass is hanging out of that robe they give you, and you're walking around like a lunatic, and you realize you're in with the other nuts. And the most surreal thing, my last special on Comedy Central aired while I was in the nut house, and we were in the common area. We were all watching TV, and you know, it's a typical people, the meth woman, the guy who thinks he's Jesus, you know, the guy thinks he's the devil, and a promo comes up. Artie Lange's stand-up special, Jack and Coke, coming up at 10. I'm like, oh my God, I forgot I was going to premiere. And they went, that's you, man. I'm like, yeah. So I go to my room, and I sit in a dark room, and I listen to 50 lunatics laugh at my special. And I was happy it was killing, but like then they gave me notes afterwards. Like, I wouldn't have done that thing where you said about Mike Tyson. Is he a good guy? I'm like, I just, I'm trying to fit my head in the blender.
You actually made it to mental wards in a couple of different countries. You in France.
I went to the psych ward of a jail in Paris for public drunkenness once. And I was in with a guy, this like 80-year-old guy, who was like the Otis of Paris, I guess. They were just locking him up. And he kept going, he kept getting in my face, going, you know. And I called the guard over. I said to the French guard, I said, this guy belongs in the psych ward. And he said, Monsieur, you are in the psych ward. And he goes, we're fine. You know the drugs. We check your urine. You know the drugs. You sleep it off, you leave. He goes, in New York, the cops go boom, boom, boom.
That is right.
Yeah, right. But yeah, it was my first international arrest. So we're very proud.
And since then, that was kind of the...
Yeah, that's the last time. Yeah. You know, again, that's why I say anything could happen.
Right. You don't count days, or you do count days?
I don't. Because it burns me, man. You know, I get so into like that day count where it's all that matters. You know, but and then when you lose it, it's too disappointing. So in my head, I just know it's not important to me. It's like, you know, I just like knowing I've been clean for a while, because your body tells you that. You know, my body is so crickety now, and I'm 46, and I got to have the body of a 90-year-old. I've just abused it, and you know, so I'm just happy that I'm standing. It's amazing what I put in my body that I'm still around. You know,
and like I said, and I hope it's will always get through to you. A lot of people care about that, man. I know in reading the book how you were crushed when Farley died. There's a lot of people that feel about you the same way.
Well, I saw, again, I knew Farley the last 2 months of his life. I shot the last movie scene he was ever in. I'm in with him. And I knew him for 2 weeks. But again, his stories were dark, but he was so funny. He was the kind of guy, he was depressed to the point where he would get hookers just to talk to him, smoke weed. Look, I don't want to be lonely type of thing. And that hits you, this guy, and he was like a hurricane, but you knew it was a matter of time. But he told us, I apologize if this is too dark, but he told me, Norm, and Adam Sandler a story in our trailer once. He said, he's always lonely for women. So he said, last year I was walking down the Santa Monica Pier, and I saw these 3 hot homeless chicks. And I said, hey, you want to live in a 5-star hotel for a week? And they were like, yeah. So I took them, I cleaned them up, and they were blowing me for a week. And we're like looking at you like, oh, good, that's great. Romantic, But then he goes, but then they didn't want to blow me anymore. And we thought he was going to say, so I said, hey, guys, let me buy, a cup of coffee and a dinner. And instead he goes, so I said, hit the road, bitch. We're like, oh, my God. And I just picture that poor woman. She just couldn't blow him one more time. She'd rather be on the street, which I can relate to. When someone larger than life like that goes out, people said that about Belushi. Like, you don't think they can die. They're in distress. That's certainly what he was like. He was made of brick, and he would do anything for a laugh. Like, and anybody was his audience. Farley was like, if a 3-year-old kid was getting amused by him, he would make her laugh as much as he wanted to make Lorne Michaels laugh. He just liked people laughing around him. Sure. It was his defense mechanism. Real funny guy, man. Well,
dude, I got to tell you, and I hope it gets, I hope that you understand how many people out there sincerely care about you and sincerely care, not just to get laughs from you, but there's something comes through that you're a really, really good dude. And I hope you find peace with that. I'm glad that you're doing as well as you have. And I hope the next time you write a book that it's so goddamn dull that nobody wants to read it. Artie Lange, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Really great.
A sprained ankle.
They wheel you out, then you're going to take the shit.
Right.
In front of her audience.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And then every asshole talk show host thinks I'm a jerk,
Well, one thing that you do out in this book is what a wonderful guy that Colin Quinn is. Mm-hmm. I mean, the fact
the best,
that he was there for you time and time again, because it's something. Like, for me, it's easier to, think from the way of an addict than it is from someone who helps addicts.
Right.
And keeps going back. That's way more frustrating to me to be on the other side of that.
Oh, God, yeah.
And the fact that he just keeps showing up in your book. And one of the things I'm reading, I'm like, does Artie get this? That he's got one of the funniest people in the history of the planet showing up over and over.
Well, it helped because you can't bullshit them, and you can't one up them.
Right.
My mom, God bless her, when I first started doing drugs, she was such a nice person, so naive to drugs. She could walk on me doing a line of coke, and I'd go, "Look, it's Disney World," and she would look, and I'd do a line of coke. But with Colin, he's gonna, and every analysis is gonna be funny and witty and make sense, and he's smarter than you are, So he's a guy that I didn't want to disappoint after a while,
After disappointing him 18 times, 19 times,
18 million times, absolutely.
Yeah. That's the thing about it is when you're reading this book, you think to yourself, well, Artie had to have bottomed out. And then you look down, you're like, well, this is the 20th page, so obviously this is going to keep going on. Because these really rough things would happen. You would go get clean, and what then makes that do either that first drink or that first blast?
I wish I didn't sound like such a pussy when I said this, but for me it was anything. It was traffic. It was stress at work, just not being a strong person, I'm lucky that, I'm in a business where I could behave like I behave and get rewarded for it. I was going, how could you say that to Emma? Go back to her right now. Call your mother again and find out some good advice. I like the movie Alex and Emma, which is the best argument for heroin of all time.
It also takes a really long time to smoke a cigarette.
Oh, God, yeah. Well, I got burned. I had burn holes all over my couch, you know.
Yeah.
All those things. And my mother was kind of naive, would say, like, what are they doing here? And I'm like, you know, I don't know. Some cat broke into the house or lit it on.
Your mom, of course, plays a very big part of this book. Your mom and your sister never gave up on you. And how do you look back now of knowing what you put the people who love you most?
It's guilt I'll never get over, ever, you know. You know, they found me. I gave my mother a key to my place because she insisted, because she just had to make sure I was okay, and I couldn't argue with her. Stuff had gotten so bad. And the morning I stabbed myself, they had planned an intervention, and they were there with Colin Quinn and a couple of friends of mine and some uncles and aunts. And it wasn't going to be an intervention where I had a choice. They were dragging me away, but they just happened to come the morning where I just did that, and. You know, I thought to myself, what if I stabbed myself 9 times in the stomach? And I said, what if I don't die? And like he says, you just don't care about anything. I don't know what my plan was if I didn't die. Get up and put on a red shirt and hope no one notices. What am I going to do? But people say, why don't you just jump off a building and make sure it happens or blow your head off? And I could have made a couple of phone calls and probably got a gun. But the jumping off it shows how my mind thinks. If I went to the Four Seasons and got on the 80th floor and jumped out on 5th Avenue, I said, I really thought this way. I said, what if I fall on somebody? That poor motherfucker. I said, and I pictured in my head a woman crying on the Oprah Winfrey Show, and underneath it, there's a caption that says, Artie Lange fell on her son. Or her 2 sons.
Right.
And then I lived.
Yeah, right.
Their dad, I just have a...
Artie Lange, everybody.
Wow. Thanks, guys. Wow. This is everybody I owe money to.
It is. All here at the same time. Crash and Burn is Artie's new book, and unfortunately, there's nothing really to discuss that's in this book. It's such easygoing life that
it's a lighthearted romp.
It's such on so many levels, and I told you this before that I'm in recovery also.
Yeah, wow, that's great. It's amazing. I hear when I hear that, it really makes me feel good because you don't feel alone. That's the whole point of it.
That is the whole point of it. But normally, when you read anyone's kind of junkie book at all, it makes you crave it a little bit because they romanticize it. Not this book. This book is like, thank God that's not me.
Yeah, this isn't like James Bond doing a line of coke with Elizabeth Hurley in Monte Carlo. This is puking at a Jersey rest stop and trying to take the pills out of the puke and retake them with a hooker that looks like David Ortiz. That's the funniest thing a hooker ever said to me once. She was eating a Big Mac. And she was eating a Big Mac. And she said to me, we got her for this bachelor party. And, you know, it was dope all over the place. The stories that it remind you of when you talk about this shit. But she's eating this Big Mac, and she hadn't, performed for us yet, I'll say. And I'm like, why are you eating that Big Mac? She goes, next guy I got to go to wants me to shit on him. I said, do you want some kale?
Quite a busy schedule she had that day, huh?
Tell Jim Norton I said hi. It's a hip crowd.
Yeah, it is. This crowd really knows. Well, when you were putting this book together, had you been thinking a lot about these things before you started to write it?
Well, here's the honest. Someone asked him about smoking weed. He said coke is the worst, don't do it. But he said he would always write his act straight, smoke weed, and rewrite it, and it always got funnier. So if George Carlin says that, what comic's not going to smoke weed?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, do you think this is tied in, the addiction's tied into your creativity, or this would have happened.
I'd like to think not. You know, when the material that I sort of made it on was all stuff that was just crazy stories and opinions about stuff that wasn't dope related. But you know, if you're a comic and you're kind of observational, if heroin comes into your life, it takes over your life, you're naturally going to write about it. It's an experience, you know. It's not like it's like writing about getting married or something. It's a big part of your life, so you write about it.
The interesting thing, though, is to be a comedian is such a social thing. You've got to interact with the audience, and heroin is the exact opposite of being social. You don't want to see anyone.
So you're saying what I was doing wasn't logical?
Yes. That's what I was easy.
Thank you, Dr. Freud.
I was thinking this might lead to some problems for you, Artie.
What you're doing is wrong. No, I know. That's the cocaine and ecstasy.
Yeah.
They're social drugs.
Right.
You want to go out and be with people. And everything you say is fascinating. You want to tell them about your idea for a friend's spec script you're working on. Or a new movie idea for Ray Romano. You say stupid shit. But you're sociable. Heroin is the direct opposite. You want to isolate. And I think about heroin that was great was you remembered your problems. You didn't forget them, but you remembered them. You just didn't give a fuck about them.
Yeah,
you didn't care. I don't give a shit what you say. I'm on heroin. I'm doing fine.
Right.
And it made you like bad entertainment. I remember the first time I ever did heroin. I knew I had a problem because I was in a hotel room on the road. I did a couple of lines, and as my head hit the pillow, I said out loud, "I'm in trouble." I said out because this feeling of euphoria came on, and the clicker was just out of reach. And there was a movie on with Luke Wilson and Kate Hudson called Alex and Emma, and I never switched the channel. And by the end, I loved them. By the end, the first book I did was Too Fat to Fish.
Right.
It was so successful, and no one expected it to be. You know, apparently when you look at me, the word author doesn't scream out. But you know, because Howard wrote the foreword and promoted it, it went to #1 on the New York Times bestsellers. So Random House wanted to sign me up immediately. So they gave me $800,000 for a new book. The first payment's $200,000. And I get the check. When I got a check that big, I always take it to my mom. Like, my father had to work 8 years to make $200,000. And we were both shaking, looking at the check. And she'd be like, "What do they want you to do for this money?" I'm like, "Nothing. I don't have to go on a hitting spree in South America." So I spent all the $200,000. And then I crash and burn, so to speak. And a year and a half later, I'm getting out of rehab, and my agent calls me, so I'm glad you're doing well. But listen, if you don't write a book, you owe them the $200K. You got to give it back. And I was like, wow, I guess I'm writing a book. Right. So I said, well, they probably want me to write about what just happened, I'm sure, because it was public. And he said, yeah. So I said, I'm willing to do that. It started out hard, but it became like a therapy session. It's sort of a closure.
Right.
I'm glad I wrote about it. And I wanted it to be crazy over the top because maybe someone won't do it. You know?
Yeah. Well, like I said, there's no chance that a kid is going to read this and go, "Oh, I want to try heroin." This is not going to happen.
Yeah, I hope not.
Yeah.
I hope not.
Although there's plenty of songs that you're like, "Oh, give me shelter."
Well,
that sounds like fun.
I know. Well, that's the thing. It does, like so many of our generation.
Yeah.
We are the stupidest generation with drugs because in the 60s, no one knew anything. In the 70s, they kind of knew. But by the time I started doing dope in the early, mid-80s, heroes of mine had died from it. Like Belushi, Hendrix, they were all dead, and I still had to do it. It's like, no, I don't believe you. I'm different, you know. And when you think about Keith Richards and the Stones, that fucking music they made is like, why not do heroin? I mean, you know, like, you know, he's writing "Give Me Shelter," and, you know, the people not doing heroin are writing "Bop." And George Carlin, speaking of comics, you know, I love George Carlin, but you talk about the worst thing the greatest comic ever could say was,